One of the airline's most respected captains just got grounded in under 180 seconds. My name is Reed Callahan. I'm 56 years old. I live in Spokane, Washington, and until today, I was a senior captain with Altus Air. 18 years in that uniform. Not a scratch on my record. Not a single delay on my account. No incident reports. But none of that mattered when I got the calendar invite. It was a 15-minute block from Lyle Pearson, the new operations manager. No subject line. No explanation. Just meeting. Flight ops. I didn't think much of it at first. Figured it was about the spring transition schedule, or maybe an update to the European routing. I even brought my tablet with my notes. Lyle didn't shake my hand when I stepped into his office. He didn't smile either. Just gestured to a seat across from him and stayed standing. "I'll keep this brief," he said, pulling a piece of paper from a folder. As part of ongoing cost restructuring, Altus is sunsetting several senior flight positions. Unfortunately, this includes yours. I stared at him for a second, waiting for the real part. The explanation. The catch. He kept talking, monotone, like he'd rehearsed this in a mirror. "Your severance package is in the envelope. We're grateful for your service. HR will meet you downstairs. They'll collect your badge and uniform." "Wait," I said, holding up a hand. "You're grounding me?" He nodded. "It's not personal, Captain Callahan. These decisions are data-driven." "Data-driven?" I repeated, hearing my own voice like it belonged to someone else. "I've flown for this airline for 18 years. Lyle didn't respond. He just slid the white envelope across the desk and looked past me toward the door. Like I was already gone. I didn't touch the envelope. I just sat there, trying to keep my jaw from locking. My hands stayed flat on my knees. No thank you. No handshake. Not even eye contact. I stood up slowly. "Anything else?" Lyle shook his head once. "HR will handle the rest." I walked out of that office in silence. Down the same hallway where I'd stood with cadets for years, pointing out briefing rooms and safety protocols like it was holy ground. Past the training wall where my name was still on 3 SOPs. Nobody looked up. Nobody said a word. At the locker room, I peeled off my uniform shirt and folded it neatly into my duffel. I didn't look in the mirror. I didn't want to see what my face looked like. I left the building through the rear employee entrance. The kind where maintenance guys and fuelers step out for a smoke. The sun was high, but it felt cold anyway. I opened the truck door, tossed the duffel inside, and sat behind the wheel with the envelope still unopened on the passenger seat. No farewell. No speech. No Captain Callahan's last flight. Just a short meeting with a stranger and a severance check with my name on it. That was how Altus said goodbye. Behind every cutback is a number. But for me, this was personal. HR was waiting by the security desk when I came down. A kid named Trevor I'd seen around. Early 20s, fresh suit, clipboard in hand like it gave him authority. He smiled nervously when he saw me, like he wasn't sure whether to treat me like a retiree or a liability. "Captain Callahan," he said, "I'll be escorting you to your locker." "Right," I muttered, adjusting the duffel strap on my shoulder. Wouldn't want me to steal a stapler on the way out. He didn't know how to respond, just gave a tight smile and started walking. I followed. The hallway felt longer than usual. Familiar faces passed us, maintenance, dispatch, a couple of gate agents. Nobody said anything. They looked away, down at their radios or coffee cups. I was invisible now. When we reached the crew lounge, Trevor held the door open for me like a bellhop. I walked in and headed straight to my locker, number 118. Same one I'd had for years. I spun the dial slowly. I wasn't in a rush. Inside was the spare jacket I kept in case I got snowed in somewhere, a framed picture of me and the original Altus founder, Harold Winters, shaking hands at the company's 10th anniversary gala, and a tattered crew photo from my first year with the airline. 8 of us, smiling wide, wearing those hideous gold-striped ties they retired years ago. I ran my thumb across the corner of the photo. Back then, we thought Altus was something special. A pilot's airline, built by aviators. Not a spreadsheet company hiding behind slogans like elevated efficiency. I slid the photo into my duffel, took one last look at the inside of the locker, then shut it with a click. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text. From Logan Rivers, one of the junior pilots I'd helped train. "Logan, sir, is it true? Are you out?" I stared at the screen for a second. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Trevor cleared his throat softly. "Ready, Captain?" "Don't call me that," I said. It came out harsher than I meant it to. "I'm not a captain anymore." We exited through the hangar side. The wind hit hard. Planes were lined up on the tarmac, tails gleaming in the sun. The same aircraft I'd flown for nearly 2 decades. We stopped at the security gate. Trevor gave me a small nod. I'm sorry. I know today was unexpected. Unexpected. That word again. I nodded back, but didn't say anything. I walked through the turnstile and kept going until I hit the employee parking lot. As I reached my truck, I saw the reflection of myself in the side mirror, white undershirt, no uniform, hair pushed back by the wind. Just a middle-aged man with a duffel and nowhere to go. I climbed in, tossed the bag into the passenger seat again. The envelope was still there, untouched. I started the engine, but I didn't pull out right away. I stared out the windshield, back at the building that used to feel like a second home. 18 years. Gone in less time than it takes to run a pre-flight. I remembered my first day, stepping into the cockpit of a CRJ 700, shaking hands with Captain Brunner. Welcome aboard, Callahan, he'd said. We don't just fly planes here, we build them. And for a while, we did. That was before they stopped calling us pilots and started calling us labor units. Before Harold retired and his son Jeffrey took over. Before the soul of Altus got traded for margin reports and quarterly earnings calls. I put the truck in drive and pulled out slowly. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew I wasn't coming back. They'd cut me out like a line item. But I wasn't done flying. Not even close. I didn't plan to go back. But the message from Catherine Reynolds changed that. She was the head instructor at Altus now, used to be one of my cadets. Sharp, steady under pressure, the kind of pilot who never cut corners. She texted me the next morning. Catherine, we're in the lounge. Everyone's asking about you. Please come. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, rereading it. Then I turned the key and headed back toward the terminal. When I stepped into the crew lounge, the room quieted for a second. Then erupted. Reed, you gotta be kidding me. They actually let you go? This is insane. There were maybe 15 pilots there, a mix of senior crew and some I'd personally trained over the years. They looked angry. Like really, genuinely angry. Logan stood up from the couch. You trained half of us. How did they cut you like that? Catherine gave me a hug. She didn't say anything at first, just pulled back and shook her head. This is wrong. Everyone here knows it. I held up a hand, trying to calm them. Look, it's done. Don't get yourselves into trouble on my account. Trouble? Said Sam Alvarez, another senior pilot. They just can't. One of the safest, most experienced captains we have. You think they'll stop with you? I didn't answer that. Mostly because I wasn't sure. Catherine crossed her arms. They gutted the simulator budget last quarter. Slashed recurrent training hours. And now this? It's not just about you, Reed. It's a pattern. I could feel the tension buzzing in the room like static. Still, I said, don't risk your jobs for me. I'm not worth that. Bull, Sam said. You built the system they still train with. I remember when Harold brought you on, he said, Callahan's gonna bring the discipline we need. You're part of this airline's backbone. That name stopped me. Harold. It had been a few years since I'd spoken to him. He'd retired and moved to Arizona after turning the reins over to his son, Jeffrey, the son who now ran the place like a hedge fund. As if summoned, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I picked up. Reed Callahan. Still answering like a pro, came the warm, gravelly voice on the other end. It's Harold. My heart kicked. Harold. Long time. Not long enough, apparently. I just heard what they did. Reed, I'm sorry. This isn't what I built Altus for. I stepped into the hallway to talk. I appreciate that, I said quietly. But it's out of your hands now. Maybe not, he replied. There's a friend of mine, Victor Chin. He's at Skyward Global now. Chief Strategy Officer. They're expanding west, and they need someone like you. Real leadership. Safety first type. I was quiet. He'll take your call, Harold said. And I'll make the introduction myself. Back in the lounge, I returned to find the pilots still gathered, some pacing, some sitting in tense silence. I looked around at the faces I had seen in the sim, on the ramp, in the flight deck at 3 a.m. when a de-ice delay threatened to ground a crew. I had tried to walk away, but something was shifting here. They weren't just angry, they were rallying. I'm meeting with a contact, I told Catherine. Not sure what will come of it. But, just in case things get worse here, hang tight. Be smart. Watch each other's backs. She nodded once. We always do. And I realized then, they hadn't just lost a captain. They just gained a reason to fight. I came back to the crew lounge 2 days later. Not as an employee, my badge had been deactivated. But word travels fast in places like this, especially among pilots. Catherine had quietly invited me in through the back freight access, same way catering used to sneak leftover hot meals to ground staff. When I stepped in, the room was packed. Not 15 or 20 this time, more like 50. Every jump seat qualified pilot on rotation, senior and junior alike. Even a couple of retired guys who'd kept their medicals up just in case they ever got called for relief duty. They weren't talking loudly. No shouting or fist-pumping. But there was a heaviness in the air. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Unity. Catherine stood by the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. They just canceled another sim slot, she said as I approached. Told 2 first officers their recurrent training would be deferred to next quarter. That's a violation, I said without thinking. You can't kick the can on currency and still put them on the line. Exactly. She glanced at the clock. Lyle's on his way down. Heard we were gathering. A ripple went through the room. No one moved. Minutes later, Lyle Pearson strode in like a man who thought a clipboard made him bulletproof. This ends now, he snapped. You all have flights. We're already short crews, and if we lose today's rotation, Catherine cut him off. Then maybe you should have thought twice before gutting the safety protocols. He blinked. Excuse me. She stepped forward, voice even. We're invoking a safety stand-on under Article 4 of the FAA Flight Crew Agreement. Effective immediately. Silence fell like a dropped headset. Lyle glanced around the room, clearly hoping someone would flinch. No one did. I cleared my throat. The pilots aren't refusing to work. They're exercising their right to delay operations pending safety evaluation. Read the handbook. You don't even work here anymore, Lyle snapped. Then it should scare you more that the ones who do aren't backing down. The door slammed open. Everyone turned. Jeffrey Winters walked in, Altus's CEO and Harold's son. Tailored Navy suit, Altus pin on his lapel, that permanent politician smirk barely hanging on. Okay, folks, he said, smoothing down his jacket. What's this all about? Pilots refusing to fly? Surely there's been a misunderstanding. Catherine didn't blink. No misunderstanding. We're grounding ourselves under FAA safety provisions. Over what? Jeffrey asked, laughing. What specific issue are you claiming? Sam Alvarez stepped forward. Recurrent training cancellations. Maintenance deferrals. System pressure to fly while technically non-compliant. And Catherine added, retaliatory terminations. Reed Callahan wasn't just a captain. He was the one who trained half of us. You don't just fire a man like that without consequences. Jeffrey raised his hands. We're in compliance with federal guidelines. We'll take this up with the union. We already have, Catherine said. They're backing us. For a moment, it looked like Jeffrey might yell, or threaten, or pull rank. Instead, he just looked at me. You started this, he muttered. I shook my head. No, you did. The moment you treated safety like an expense. He turned and walked out without another word. Lyle followed, looking like someone had just told him the plane he was on lost its engine. Catherine turned back to the group. That's it. It's official now. A low murmur spread through the room. No cheers. Just the quiet satisfaction of a team standing its ground. They'd taken my wings. But these pilots just grounded the whole damn airline. The next morning, the pilots started drafting a formal report. It wasn't about revenge, not for me, anyway. It was about documentation. Protecting licenses. Protecting lives. Once the stand-on became official, Catherine got a call from the union's safety board rep within the hour. They requested specifics. So we gave them specifics. I sat with Catherine, Sam, and 2 others, Logan and a seasoned flight engineer named Rena, at a corner table in the ops room. We made a list of irregularities. Deferred engine inspections marked non-critical 3 months in a row. Landing gear struts reported with pressure discrepancies marked no action necessary. And the sim's entire rotations either canceled or logged as conducted when they weren't. Catherine pulled up the maintenance log entries on her tablet. This one's listed as minor cosmetic concern, she said, pointing to an entry. But the photos show a stress crack along the left-wing root fairing. That's not cosmetic, I muttered. That's structural. Rena scrolled further. These signatures, they don't match the techs who were assigned. Wait, I said, sitting forward. Go back. She zoomed in. I narrowed my eyes. These initials. They belonged to Tom Brenner. But Tom transferred to San Diego base last February. Which means he couldn't have signed this form last month, Catherine said. The room went silent. It was worse than poor oversight. This was fabrication. We exchanged glances, the weight of it settling in. These weren't just lazy entries or sloppy logs. They were falsified. Someone was cooking the books to make maintenance look up to date when it wasn't. And if the FAA caught wind of this, or worse, if something happened in the air, Catherine tapped her pen against the table. We have to submit this. Now, you realize what happens next, Sam said. This goes beyond union grievances. This is criminal. Exactly, I said, which is why we need to secure the data. We backed up everything, scanned entries, time-stamped photos, crew memos. Rena encrypted the files on a personal hard drive and uploaded a duplicate to a secure Union Cloud folder. Right then, the door flew open. Lyle Pearson stormed in, flanked by 2 security officers. Behind them, Jeffrey. You're not authorized to be in this area, Lyle barked, eyes on me. I stood up slowly. We're preparing a report for the FAA and Union Compliance Board. Jeffrey didn't waste time. Hand over any documents you've gathered. Immediately. That information belongs to Altus. Actually, Catherine said, standing beside me. Per FAA Part 121, once a safety violation is suspected, all personnel are obligated to preserve and report evidence. You interrupt that process, it's obstruction. Jeffrey stepped closer, face flushed. This is nonsense. Then why are you sending security to shut it down? I asked. He didn't answer. His eyes flicked toward the bag Rena had under the table. I'll make this simple, he said. Reed, you're trespassing. If you don't leave now, I'll have you arrested. I took a breath. Then do it. But know this, there are 3 copies of everything we've found. One with the Union, one off-site, and one going to the FAA by noon. Rena closed the bag calmly. And you won't find any of them here. For the first time, Jeffrey hesitated. He knew. They both did. This wasn't just a mutiny anymore. This was exposure. Criminal exposure. They had tried to cut me out quietly, hide the rot behind corporate buzzwords. But now we had proof. It started with a severance envelope. Now it was a federal violation. They walked me out of the building again, this time with security flanking me like I was carrying a weapon instead of a hard drive and a duffel bag. But I wasn't defeated. If anything, I was more focused than I'd been in years. The moment I got back to my truck, I made the call to Harold. He picked up on the second ring. They tried to shut us down, I said. We found altered maintenance records. Not mistakes, fakes. They used a tech's name who's been out of state for months. Harold let out a low whistle. They're cooked. FAA's going to see it soon. Our report goes out today. He paused, then said, Good. If this thing goes the way I think it will. Altus is about to hit turbulence they won't recover from. And it started happening faster than anyone expected. That afternoon, pilots began logging mechanical issues in their flight reports. Carefully, professionally. No exaggerations, just the truth. A rattle in the rudder that had been ignored. A sticky flap lever that didn't get flagged before. Low tire pressure. Minor hydraulic bleed. One by one, flights were delayed. Then canceled. Planes grounded themselves under the very same FAA rules the company thought it could outmaneuver. By Friday morning, close to 40% of Altus's network was frozen. No one had declared a strike. Not one pilot refused to work outright. But they used the same discretion the company had always trusted them to use. This time, in the interest of actual safety. It was beautiful, quiet, lawful, devastating. Jeffrey had his PR team spinning hard by noon. Temporary technical irregularities. Standard operational hiccups. Isolated reporting delays. But passengers weren't buying it. Social media lit up. Delays stacked into the hundreds. Crew shortages. Missed connections. And worst of all, pictures of grounded aircraft still parked at gates, while other airlines taxied around them. Catherine called that afternoon. FAA just contacted us, she said, barely hiding the emotion in her voice. They want a formal statement. From you. Me? I asked. They know you started the training protocols. You've got the credibility. For a second, I didn't say anything. I stared out at the mountains in the distance from the bluff where I'd parked. The horizon always calmed me. I'll give them whatever they need, I said. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this because the only thing worse than being grounded is knowing someone else could be hurt because we didn't speak up. Reed, she said, softer now. You were the only reason I became a captain. Don't forget that. I didn't respond right away. She wasn't just being kind. She was reminding me of something. That even outside the cockpit, a good captain still commands something. Respect, trust, belief. And Altus? They didn't realize it yet, but they were already in free fall. They thought they could cut corners, hide risks behind profit, strip out the human element, and still fly clean. But now the human element was fighting back. Quietly, patiently, relentlessly. They grounded me once. Now my influence was grounded in every decision my crew made. And for the first time, they were the ones with no way to climb. Victor Chun greeted me in the lobby of Skyward Global's Seattle headquarters with a firm handshake and a direct smile. "I've been looking forward to this," he said, guiding me toward a glass-walled conference room overlooking the runway at Boeing Field. "You come highly recommended." We both knew who had done the recommending. Harold. The man still had pull, even in retirement. Victor was maybe early 50s, sharp suit, no-nonsense posture. But he didn't have that stiff, corporate stiffness I'd gotten used to under Jeffrey. He spoke like someone who actually flew once upon a time, and respected those who still did. "I'm not going to dance around this," he said as we Saturday. "We've been watching what's happening at Altus. We've seen the delays, the maintenance flags, the pilot unity. It tells us something important." He paused just long enough for me to raise an eyebrow. "It tells us that someone with influence, someone with real loyalty from the flight teams, was behind it." I didn't answer right away, just looked at him. Victor nodded. "Harold said you built their entire training protocol. And based on what we've seen, he wasn't exaggerating." I glanced out the window. One of Skyward's new Airbus A330s was taxiing in, clean and sleek, painted with the kind of livery that suggested ambition, not arrogance. "We want you here," Victor said. "Director of Flight Operations. Full control over pilot training, safety standards, and personnel development." I blinked. Full control. He smiled. "No bureaucracy. No budget chokeholds. We're growing fast, and we need to do it right. That means leadership from someone who actually knows what the hell they're doing." It was tempting. More than tempting. It was everything Altus used to stand for before they traded principle for quarterly margins. "And if I say yes?" I asked. "You'll be based here. Build the program however you see fit. And," he added, sliding a folder across the table, "we'll offer positions to any Altus pilots who want to make the jump." I opened the folder. It was already populated. Names, credentials, conditional offers. "At least 30 have already reached out to us through unofficial channels," Victor said. "Some of your people. They're just waiting on your word." I exhaled slowly. 30. 30 pilots willing to walk away from their careers to follow me. "You're not just a pilot, Reed," Victor said quietly. "You're a standard. And right now, that means something." I stared at the offer letter in front of me. I thought about Catherine, Sam, Logan, Rena, all of them, standing up not because they were angry, but because they still believed in what the job meant. I reached for the pen and signed my name. Victor stood and offered his hand again. "Welcome aboard, Captain Callahan." For the first time in weeks, I smiled. They took my uniform, but I just got the whole damn flight deck. 3 weeks later, I stood inside the training hangar at Skyward Global's new Northwest facility, watching a class of pilots run emergency drills in a mock cockpit I'd helped design from scratch. It still smelled like fresh paint and jet fuel. The good kind of new. The kind that meant things were being built, not broken down. 30 pilots from Altus had made the move with me. 30. I walked through the corridor and nodded to each one I passed, some studying checklists, some in classroom briefings, a few in jump seat drills. They looked sharper, more focused, like the weight had come off their shoulders and something steadier had settled in its place. Catherine greeted me just outside Simroom 2, clipboard in hand. "We're expanding already," she said, grinning. 2 more cadets from Delta East just applied. Heard about the culture shift and want in. "Smart of them," I said. "This place has airspace and ambition." Victor joined us moments later. He wore his usual blazer and running shoes combo, the kind of CEO who didn't need to impress because the results already did the talking. "We just finalized our Alaska and Vancouver routes," he said. "We're adding another A330 by spring." Catherine's eyes widened. "That's fast." Victor nodded. "Reed's program is getting noticed. The FAA is tagging our recurrent drills as a regional model." Word's spreading. I tried not to smile, but it crept in anyway. This place, this team, it felt alive. Not a system ticking toward collapse, but a foundation being laid with care and purpose. Every meeting wasn't about margins. Every conversation didn't end with, "Can we get away with less?" They wanted better, safer, smarter. And that's what we were building. Meanwhile, Altus was scrambling. The FAA had grounded 6 more of their aircraft pending internal reviews. 2 inspections had revealed improperly signed maintenance logs, just like we'd flagged. Their social media pages had gone silent. The last press release was 3 days old and full of carefully chosen words like transitional headwinds and operational recalibration. But the truth was written in empty gates and passenger refunds. And then came the headline. Altus CEO Jeffrey Winters resigns amid FAA scrutiny. Lyle Pearson also steps down, interim leadership named. I read it on my tablet during a break in the training lounge. Catherine sat beside me, scrolling the same story. They're trying to get ahead of the fire, she said. Won't work. Too late, I said. The logbooks always catch up. Victor stepped in with a fresh printout in his hand. They reached out. Who did? Catherine asked. Altus, he said. Their board sent a formal inquiry. I raised an eyebrow. About what? About possibly consulting or returning. He handed me the paper. For you. I stared at the letter. Polite. Careful. Desperate. They're bleeding, Catherine said. And they're hoping the guy they toss can plug the hole. I placed the paper on the table. Not interested. Victor smiled. Didn't think you would be. But you should know what you're building here. It's already the standard they're chasing. I stood and looked out the window at the training tarmac, where one of our new jets was being prepped. 30 pilots, 1 new center, and a safety culture that was already making waves. They threw me out like I was a cost. But now? Now I was the model they were trying to copy. Let him chase. We were already airborne. 6 months later, I stood on the observation deck at Skyward Seattle Hub, watching our first Dreamliner descend through a streak of afternoon cloud. Sleek, smooth, perfect. The kind of landing you could feel was right even before the tires kissed the runway. Nice flare, came a voice beside me. I turned. Harold Winters stood there, hands folded behind his back, a familiar glint in his eye. He wore a windbreaker instead of a suit now, and he looked 10 years younger than when I last saw him at Altus. She's a natural, I said, nodding toward the Dreamliner. Catherine Reynolds stepped off the jet 5 minutes later, high-fiving the first officer as they cleared the stairs. She caught my eye from the tarmac and gave a salute. I returned it with a small nod. She's the one who started the stand-on, Harold said, shaking his head in admiration. Damn proud of her. She'll be running the program in a year, I said. Maybe less. Harold looked over at me. Altus just called me. Again. I raised an eyebrow. Still trying to pull you back? He chuckled. They offered me the CEO's seat. Said they want to return to legacy values. Whatever the hell that means. You going? Hell no. He shook his head. Told them I already passed the baton. Said they should talk to you. I laughed. Let me guess. They already did. He gave a little shrug. A board rep's flying in tomorrow. Wants to make an offer. Full control. Write your own terms. All the usual junk. I let the silence hang for a second. Then I said, I'm already where I belong. Harold nodded. That's what I figured. We stood in silence a while longer, watching as the Dreamliner was guided toward Gate 9. Ground crew in skyward vests moved like clockwork, efficient, calm, focused. The way it used to be. I built something here, I said. Not just a training program. Not just a team. A culture. A future. You sure did, Harold said. They grounded you once. I smiled. Now I fly above them. He laughed at that. Deep and genuine. Damn right you do. The PA clicked on overhead, announcing the next skyward departure. Flight 812 to Denver. Captain Charles, one of our Altus transfers, was at the helm. Every name on that flight deck had once been considered expendable. Now they were the backbone of something better. I watched the jet roll down the taxiway, engines rumbling like a promise. Altus could send their board reps. They could revise their mission statements and swap out CEOs like spare parts. But they couldn't undo the past. And they sure as hell couldn't buy back what they threw away. This wasn't about a seat at their table anymore. I had built a new table. A better one. And I wasn't going anywhere.